Let us begin our journey now, a slow, deliberate drift into the world of Maria Sklodowska, the girl who would eventually become known to all as Marie Curie. Allow your body to fully relax, releasing any lingering tension from your shoulders, your jaw, your feet. Sink deeper, knowing that the journey we embark upon is one of quiet determination, deep sacrifice, and the serene pursuit of knowledge. We travel far back, to the late 19th century, to the cobblestone streets and cold, imposing buildings of Warsaw, a city draped in a heavy, historical silence. This was Maria's home, but it was not a free home. Poland was under the rigid control of the Russian Empire, a place where the pursuit of Polish culture and independent thought was systematically suppressed. This atmosphere of quiet resistance, this underlying tension between external control and internal conviction, deeply shaped Maria's character. She learned the necessity of guarding the fire within, keeping her true ambitions hidden, yet always glowing brightly. Maria was the youngest of 5 children, born into a family of respected, though financially strained, teachers. Her father, the Ladislaw, taught mathematics and physics, subjects Maria naturally gravitated towards. Her mother, Bronislawa, a talented pianist and teacher, instilled in her children a love for literature and a profound sense of duty. But tragedy had already etched itself into the family's history. Before Maria was 11, her eldest sister died of typhus, and then, devastatingly, her mother succumbed to tuberculosis. These early losses forced Maria to confront the fragility of life and the immense, quiet power of resilience. Imagine young Maria, a child of immense intellectual curiosity, moving through the restricted educational system of Russian-controlled Warsaw. Though highly intelligent, she faced an insurmountable barrier: the official University of Warsaw did not admit women. This was not merely an inconvenience, it was a profound, systemic denial of her fundamental potential. Yet, for Maria, the inability to enter a formal lecture hall simply meant the boundaries of her classroom had to be redefined. She sought out the hidden avenues of learning, attending the clandestine, illegal institution known as the Floating University, Uniwersytet Latyczny. This was a secret, rotating network of dedicated Polish scholars who met in private homes, risking state repression, to teach subjects banned by the Russian authorities. Imagine the atmosphere: lectures given softly in the dim light, heavy curtains drawn against spying eyes, the thrill of intellectual freedom mixing with the constant, subtle fear of discovery. In these secretive rooms, Maria's mind was sharpened on the difficult edges of forbidden knowledge. But the pursuit of genuine, advanced scientific training required leaving Warsaw entirely. The dream was Paris, the vibrant center of European science, and the famed Sorbonne University. This dream, however, was tethered to a harsh reality: poverty. The family simply did not have the means to send both Maria and her older sister, Bronislawa, to France. This led to one of the most defining agreements of their young lives, a pact of selfless devotion. Maria and Bronislawa agreed on a plan of mutual support. Maria would work first, taking the draining and often solitary job of a governess, saving every spare coin, to financially support Bronislawa's medical studies in Paris. Then, once Bronislawa graduated and began earning, Bronislawa would support Maria's turn to pursue her physics and mathematics degree. This was a long-term contract of love and sacrifice, extending over several years. Focus now on Maria during her years as a governess, from 1885 to 1891. Imagine her isolated existence in large, often emotionally cold country estates, tutoring the children of wealthy families. By day, her energy was spent ensuring the intellectual progress of her young charges. Her days were structured, predictable, and often devoid of the intellectual stimulation she desperately craved. But the silence of the nights belonged only to Maria. After the household settled and the great house was shrouded in darkness and quiet, Maria would begin her true labor. Picture her small, simple room, illuminated only by the faint, steady glow of a kerosene lamp. She would pull out her worn textbooks, smuggled copies of scientific treatises, and handwritten notes. Her subjects were advanced and demanding: algebra, trigonometry, calculus, and, most cherished of all, physics. She worked tirelessly, often until the early hours of the morning, battling exhaustion and the persistent cold. The lamp's soft, warm light casting long shadows across the pages of her books became a symbol of her commitment, a small, steady light against the vast darkness of her temporary exile. This 6-year period of rigorous self-study, self-discipline, and financial sacrifice was her true preparatory university. It was here, in the quiet solitude of her room, that Maria forged the internal fortitude and unwavering focus that would characterize her greatest scientific breakthroughs. She was not only saving money, she was saving her mind, keeping it sharp, engaged, and ready for the moment opportunity finally arrived. Think of the patience required. Year after year, she sent her meager earnings across borders, knowing that every cent went towards her sister's dream, delaying her own. This immense capacity for delayed gratification, for working towards a distant, uncertain future, is a profound element of her genius. It teaches us the quiet power of consistency. During this time, she experienced fleeting moments of intellectual connection, notably with a young mathematics student named Kazimierz Zoroski, whose family employed her. A romantic connection blossomed, but the social chasm between the governess and the wealthy scholar was deemed too great by his family. The engagement was broken, a painful reminder of the rigid social structures that Maria had dedicated her life to transcending through merit and intellect. The pain of this rejection only deepened her resolve. She would rely only on her own mind, her own work, her own scientific ambition. Finally, in 1891, the long, arduous wait was over. Bronislawa, now a practicing doctor in Paris, sent the long-awaited letter. She was ready to keep her side of the pact. Maria had finally earned her passage. After 6 years of disciplined self-denial, the Polish dreamer could at last become a Parisian student. Imagine the last moments in Warsaw, the bittersweet goodbyes to her father and her familiar city, the profound mixture of fear and exhilaration. She packed a small suitcase containing mostly her scientific books and her simple, dark clothing. She carried with her only a small amount of money, just enough for the train fare and the first few months of rent. Everything else she possessed was her intellectual preparation, her years of solitary study, and her boundless hope. The train ride was long and arduous, a physical transition mirroring the mental leap she was making, from the rigid, constrained atmosphere of Russian Poland to the exhilarating freedom and intellectual chaos of France. She was leaving behind the shadow of oppression and social limitation and heading toward the light of the Sorbonne. As she traveled, she was no longer Maria Sklodowska, the governess, she was Maria, the future physicist. The journey itself was a meditation on possibility, a passage from sacrifice to destiny. The quiet rhythm of the train wheels carrying her westward marked the end of her long, silent preparation and the start of her visible, radiant career. Let the peaceful image of Maria's transition settle into your mind. The deep commitment she showed to her goal, the quiet acceptance of hard work, and the patient waiting for the right moment. Carry this sense of purpose and calm discipline as you drift closer to sleep. The world of Paris awaits, but for now, you rest, knowing that great journeys always begin with quiet resolution. We left Maria Sklodowska on a long, contemplative train ride, leaving behind the years of sacrifice in Warsaw and the social constraints of her Polish homeland. Now, allow your mind to follow her as she arrives in the glittering, yet utterly overwhelming, city of Paris, in the autumn of 1891. Paris, the city of light. Yet, for Maria, it was not initially a place of brightness or ease. It was a place of fierce, exhilarating challenge and profound, isolating poverty. She arrived with minimal funds, relying entirely on the small stipend sent by her sister, Bronislawa, and Bronislawa's husband, Casimir. Initially, Maria stayed with her sister and brother-in-law. While their company offered comfort and a familiar language, the distance to the Sorbonne, the grand intellectual fortress she had longed to enter, was too great, and the bustling, social atmosphere of the household was too distracting for the intense concentration she required. Maria was, at her core, a solitary scholar. Her mind demanded silence and singular focus. So, in a decision typical of her dedication, Maria moved to the Latin Quarter, closer to the Sorbonne and the scientific heart of the city. Her new home was a series of increasingly small, increasingly cold garrets, tiny attic rooms high up in the old buildings of Paris. Imagine the scene: narrow, winding staircases, the sharp smell of cold plaster and damp wood, and a small window offering a view of the slate rooftops and the vast, indifferent sky. Her existence became a masterpiece of austerity and rigorous budgeting. Her meager funds had to stretch to cover tuition, books, and the basic necessities of life. She lived on an unbelievably strict diet, often consuming only tea, bread, and perhaps an egg, or sometimes just radishes. There were times when she was so desperately cold and malnourished that she would faint from hunger, only to be revived by a neighbor or a concerned friend. But the physical hardship was a small price to pay for the intellectual feast spread before her at the Sorbonne. She had gained entry to the grand lecture halls, finally sitting among other ambitious students, though they were overwhelmingly male. She immersed herself in the study of physics, chemistry, and mathematics. Imagine her in the lecture hall, often shivering under her heavy coat, but her mind entirely ablaze. The French language, though initially a hurdle, quickly became a vehicle for complex thought. Her dedication was absolute. While other students pursued the social life of Paris, Maria pursued the rigorous, demanding elegance of the natural laws. She had no time for distraction. Every hour was a stolen treasure, every lecture a hard-won victory. She was not just a good student, she was an exceptional one. She attacked her studies with a hunger born of years of forced deprivation. In 1893, despite all the challenges, the cold, the hunger, the language barrier, Maria passed her examinations and earned her master's degree in physics, finishing first in her entire class. The following year, demonstrating her astounding breadth of intellect, she repeated this feat, earning a second degree in mathematics, this time graduating second in her class. These early successes were more than academic achievements, they were powerful vindications of her life's path, the final repayment of the solemn pact she had made with her sister. Yet, even with 2 master's degrees, Maria's financial struggle was not over. She required a proper laboratory space to begin her original research, a prerequisite for advanced work. She secured a small grant to investigate the magnetic properties of various steels, a practical industrial problem. She needed a place to work, but no laboratory in Paris seemed willing or able to accommodate a determined, focused young woman from Poland. This is the point in our story, listeners, where destiny, having patiently watched Maria's struggle, begins to weave the threads of her future. Maria was introduced to a Polish professor who knew of her need for space. This professor happened to know a dedicated, quiet, and deeply serious French scientist who directed a small, modest laboratory at the School of Physics and Industrial Chemistry. His name was Marie Curie. Let us pause for a moment on Pierre. He was 35 years old, 8 years older than Maria. He was a man of immense talent, already recognized for his pioneering work on crystallography and the magnetic properties of bodies, the phenomenon now known as the Curie point. He was known for his thoughtful, gentle demeanor and his utter devotion to science. He lived a life of intellectual pursuit, entirely uninterested in worldly fame or social convention. His colleagues often described him as a brilliant mind trapped in the wrong century, too focused on pure science, too unconcerned with practical applications. When Maria and Pierre first met, the connection was not a sudden, dramatic spark of romantic love, but a profound, almost inevitable intellectual resonance. Imagine the scene, 2 minds meeting across a crowded room, only to realize they speak the exact same, difficult, beautiful language of mathematics and physics. Their early conversations were not about poetry or politics, but about scientific idealism, the need for intellectual freedom, the importance of disinterested research, and the absolute pursuit of truth. Pierre was captivated by Maria's single-minded intensity, her quiet strength, and the sharpness of her mind. Maria, in turn, found in Pierre the intellectual equal she had perhaps never dared to imagine, a partner who understood her commitment entirely, a man who saw her only as a scientist. Pierre was instantly drawn to her. He later confessed that he saw in her quiet seriousness the potential for great, sustained work. He began to invite her back to his lab to work, finding space for her magnetic studies. The cold, damp lab became their haven, a space where their shared scientific passion began to blossom into a deeper affection. Pierre began to woo Maria, not with flowers or grand gestures, but with the language they both understood, science. He gave her a copy of his paper on symmetry in physics and crystals, inscribing it with a simple, hopeful dedication. He spoke of his deepest wish, to share his life, his work, and his dedication to science with her. Maria hesitated. She still felt an intense pull toward her homeland. She felt a deep responsibility to return to Poland, to teach, and to contribute to the uplift of her suppressed nation. She left Paris for the summer of 1894, returning to Warsaw to attempt to find a position. But Polish academic institutions, rigid and traditional, saw only a woman, regardless of her 2 master's degrees from the Sorbonne. They offered her nothing. Meanwhile, Pierre wrote to her constantly, pleading with her to return. His letters were filled with a rare, earnest poetry of dedication. It would be a fine thing, he wrote, if we could spend our life near each other, hypnotized by our dreams, your patriotic dream, our humanitarian dream, and our scientific dream. He was not asking her to give up her identity, he was asking her to merge her dreams with his. It was this profound intellectual and philosophical connection that ultimately drew her back. Maria realized that her scientific mission could be better fulfilled in the freedom of Paris, alongside the one person who truly understood her singular ambition. She returned in the autumn of 1894. The following year, on July 26, 1895, Marie, having adopted the French spelling of her name, and Pierre were married in a quiet, civil ceremony. There were no elaborate white dresses or grand receptions. Marie wore a simple dark blue suit, practical and durable, suitable for wearing later in the laboratory. They received gifts not of jewelry or silver, but 2 new bicycles, which they used for a frugal honeymoon bicycling through the French countryside, fueled by simple meals and deep, quiet conversation. Their marriage was, from the very beginning, a partnership of equals, dedicated first and foremost to the pursuit of truth. They moved into a small, modest apartment, and their life became a disciplined symphony of study, research, and quiet companionship. The immense effort and sacrifice of Maria's early years were finally rewarded, not with wealth, but with the greatest treasure she could imagine, the intellectual and personal sanctuary she needed to begin her real work. The stage is now set, listeners. Maria Sklodowska has become Marie Curie. The lonely student is now half of a remarkable scientific partnership. The calm dedication of their early life together forms the quiet foundation for the world-shaking discoveries that await them in the next part of our story. Let the image of their quiet, harmonious partnership settle your mind now. The gentle hum of the distant laboratory is a promise of the great work to come, but for tonight, let the certainty of their shared purpose guide you into a deep and tranquil rest. Let your mind drift now, following Marie and Pierre Curie as they settle into their life of shared devotion, a life where the boundaries between marriage and scientific partnership were beautifully blurred. They had found their sanctuary in Paris, not a place of luxury, but a place of absolute intellectual freedom. In the years immediately following their simple marriage in 1895, Marie pursued her final academic hurdle. She began searching for a subject for her doctoral thesis. The academic landscape was shifting rapidly. Just as Marie began her search, a series of astonishing, almost magical discoveries began to illuminate the European scientific scene. First, Wilhelm Röntgen discovered X-rays in 1895, invisible rays capable of passing through solid matter. Then, in 1896, Henri Becquerel, while investigating the nature of X-rays, made an accidental, yet profound, observation. He discovered that certain uranium salts spontaneously emitted a powerful, invisible radiation, even without external energy like sunlight. This was an entirely new phenomenon, spontaneous, persistent emission of energy. This mysterious, persistent energy captured Marie's imagination completely. She realized this was the perfect subject for her thesis, an uncharted territory, a realm of invisible forces that defied known physics. She was drawn to the unknown, the subtle energy that seemed to emanate from the very structure of matter itself. She began her research, systematically testing every known element and compound for this strange Becquerel ray activity. She employed an exceptionally sensitive and ingenious instrument designed by Pierre and his brother Jacques, the electrometer. This device allowed her to precisely measure the tiny electrical currents created when the invisible rays passed through the air. Imagine Marie, working quietly and methodically, day after day, in their small, inadequate laboratory space. She was a true pioneer, often the only person in the world focused on this specific problem. She tested compounds of uranium and thorium. Then, she tested mineral ores. She discovered that the mineral pitchblende and a related mineral, chalcolite, emitted rays far more intensely than pure uranium itself. This observation was a moment of absolute intellectual clarity, a realization that was both simple and revolutionary. If the radiation level was far greater than expected based on the uranium content, it could only mean one thing: the pitchblende contained an entirely new, highly active element, unknown to science, present in trace amounts. This was the genesis of her life's work. She realized that the atom was not, as previously thought, indivisible and unchangeable. There was a hidden, persistent power within. In 1898, Marie coined the term for this phenomenon, radioactivity. Now, the true, arduous labor began. The hypothesis of a new element needed experimental proof. The task was clear: they had to isolate this new, highly active substance from the raw pitchblende ore. Pierre, recognizing the immense importance of Marie's discovery, abandoned his own research on crystals to join her entirely. Their partnership became a laser-focused scientific crusade. Their workspace, however, was woefully inadequate. They were eventually allocated a dilapidated, leaky, and freezing space, a discarded teaching dissecting room and storage shed in the yard near the school where Pierre worked. This shed, often called the shack or le hangar, in later accounts, became the legendary cradle of their greatest discoveries. Imagine the atmosphere in the shack: it was bitterly cold in winter, unbearably hot in summer. The floor was rough asphalt, the roof leaked, and the only ventilation was minimal. Yet, it was here, amidst the chaos and the drafts, that they began processing tons, literally tons, of raw pitchblende residue, which they acquired cheaply due to the low concentration of uranium. The work was physically brutal and demanding. Marie had to handle immense, backbreaking quantities of the raw material. She performed the chemical separations, grinding, dissolving, precipitating, and fractionating the ore in huge vats and cauldrons, a scale of work usually done in industrial factories, not by two scientists in a shed. Picture her now, standing over boiling vats of pitchblende, stirring the caustic, smoking liquids with a heavy iron rod, her hands rough and stained. The air was filled with acrid fumes, and the physical effort was draining. Pierre, meanwhile, concentrated on the precise measurements using the electrometer. They worked side by side, silent for long stretches, their communication occurring through the shared language of chemical processes and scientific data. In July 1898, after months of relentless, physical labor, they successfully isolated a small fraction of the pitchblende that was significantly more radioactive than uranium. They announced the discovery of a new element, which Marie, ever mindful of her homeland, named polonium, after Poland. But their measurements indicated that another, even more intensely radioactive substance remained. The work continued, redoubled. The physical processing became even more massive. They processed hundreds of pounds of ore, painstakingly removing elements one by one. Finally, in December 1898, they announced the discovery of a second, infinitely more powerful element, radium, from the Latin word radius, meaning ray. Radium was astonishing. It was millions of times more radioactive than uranium. Its presence in the dark, dilapidated shed created a phenomenon that, today, feels like scientific magic. At night, when all the lamps were extinguished and the world outside the shack was dark, the small glass vessels containing their radium salts would glow softly, emitting a faint, ethereal blue-green light. Imagine the profound silence of the Paris night, broken only by the gentle sound of the wind, and inside the shack, this incredible, persistent, cold light. This soft, glowing emanation was the visible evidence of their immense labor, the light of their discovery. It was, as Marie later described it, one of the most beautiful sights of their lives. For 4 more grueling years, they worked to isolate radium in its purest form, a quantity sufficient to determine its atomic weight and prove its existence conclusively to the skeptical scientific community. From the tons of ore, they finally extracted just over 1/10 of a gram of pure radium chloride. This was pure perseverance, scientific dedication measured in hundreds of tons of raw material and thousands of hours of intense, focused labor. The effort took a physical toll. Both Marie and Pierre suffered from chronic fatigue and various aches and burns, symptoms they did not yet fully understand were caused by the very element they had dedicated their lives to isolating. They carried radium samples in their pockets. Marie kept a small vial on her bedside table, mesmerized by its constant glow. The danger was invisible, silent, and insidious. Their focus, however, was unbreakable. They refused to patent their process of isolating radium, believing that such a fundamental scientific discovery belonged to the world, for the good of humanity. This act of selfless idealism, this rejection of vast potential wealth, cemented their moral legacy as much as their scientific one. By 1903, Marie successfully defended her thesis, Research on Radioactive Substances, the culmination of her work. That same year, the invisible light of their discovery burst into the global spotlight. Marie and Pierre Curie, along with Henri Becquerel, were jointly awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics. The lonely student from Warsaw, working in a leaky shack, had now reached the absolute pinnacle of global scientific achievement. Let the image of the dimly lit shed, infused with the subtle, persistent, blue-green glow of newly discovered radium, bring a sense of mystery and deep contentment to your mind. Their struggle was long, but the reward was the pure, unwavering light of truth. Rest now in this quiet radiance, allowing the immense dedication of Marie Curie to inspire your own deep, peaceful slumber. As we gently turn the page from the triumph of discovery to a chapter marked by both profound sorrow and an astonishing display of human resilience. We left Marie and Pierre Curie basking in the global recognition of their Nobel Prize in Physics in 1903, a shared victory that crowned years of relentless labor in their humble shack. Their pioneering work on radioactivity had not only earned them the world's highest scientific honor but had also opened an entirely new field of physics. They were now international figures, but their commitment to science remained their guiding star, eclipsing any desire for fame or fortune. Their life continued to be one of quiet dedication, focused on their research and their 2 young daughters, Irene and Eve. The Nobel Prize, while bringing prestige, also brought an unwelcome surge of public attention, requests, and expectations, all of which encroached upon their precious research time. They largely resisted these distractions, retreating into the sanctuary of their laboratory whenever possible. Pierre Curie, a man of profound thought and gentle disposition, had always been somewhat detached from the practicalities and dangers of the outside world. His mind was often absorbed in deep scientific contemplation, making him less attuned to the hurried pace and hazards of city life. Then, tragedy struck with the sudden, brutal force of a lightning bolt. On a dreary, rainy afternoon, April 19, 1906, Pierre Curie was walking across the busy Rue Dauphine in Paris, lost in thought, possibly contemplating a new scientific problem. He was attempting to cross the street amidst heavy horse-drawn traffic. In a moment of distraction, or perhaps misjudgment, he stepped in front of a heavy, 6-ton horse-drawn cart. The cart's wheel crushed his head, killing him instantly. Imagine the shock, the abrupt, horrifying finality of such an event. Marie, at home, was informed of the accident. Her world, which had been so perfectly balanced on the shared foundation of her partnership with Pierre, shattered into a million pieces. The man who was her intellectual soulmate, her dearest friend, her husband, and the father of her children, was gone in an instant. The grief that consumed Marie was immense, profound, and utterly private. She retreated into herself, struggling to comprehend a life without Pierre. Her private journals from this period are heartbreakingly raw, filled with direct addresses to her deceased husband, detailing her despair and the overwhelming sense of loss. She chronicled her daily life in meticulous, almost obsessive detail, as if to prove to herself that life, however painful, still continued. The scientific community, reeling from the loss of one of its brightest stars, mourned deeply. Many expected Marie, a woman now widowed with 2 young children, to withdraw from science entirely. The world had already bestowed upon her its highest honor, surely, she had done enough. But Marie Curie was not just a scientist, she was a force of nature, shaped by years of adversity and an unyielding commitment to knowledge. In the depths of her grief, a different kind of resolve began to form. She made a silent, sacred promise to Pierre: she would continue their work. She would not let their shared scientific dream die with him. The Faculty of Sciences at the Sorbonne, in an unprecedented move, offered Marie Pierre's professorship. It was an extraordinary gesture, making her the first woman ever to hold a professorship at the Sorbonne. It was also an immense challenge. Stepping into Pierre's shoes was not just a professional succession, it was an emotional and symbolic act of colossal courage. On November 5, 1906, 6 months after Pierre's death, Marie delivered her inaugural lecture. The lecture hall was packed, not only with students and academics but also with journalists and curious Parisians, eager to witness history. Many expected her to begin with a eulogy to Pierre. Instead, she began precisely where Pierre had left off in his last lecture, continuing the very sentence he had been speaking before his death. Her voice, though perhaps trembling slightly with suppressed emotion, was clear and precise as she lectured on the complex subject of radioactivity. It was a powerful, dignified, and utterly scientific act of defiance against grief and expectation. She did not dwell on personal tragedy, she focused on the work, on the science, on the truth they had both pursued. The years that followed were a testament to her superhuman endurance. She raised her 2 daughters, taught at the Sorbonne, and continued her relentless research, now in a slightly improved but still rudimentary laboratory. She focused on the extremely difficult task of isolating pure, metallic radium. From tons of pitchblende, she had previously extracted radium chloride. Now, she aimed for the pure element, a feat requiring even greater chemical skill and physical endurance. Her work became more than just research, it was a form of active mourning, a way to keep Pierre's spirit alive through their shared scientific mission. The solitude of the lab became her solace, the difficult experiments her therapy. In 1910, with the assistance of André-Louis Debierne, Marie successfully isolated pure metallic radium, proving its existence definitively and refining its atomic weight. This was a monumental chemical achievement, silencing any remaining skeptics. Then, in 1911, an extraordinary and unprecedented event occurred. The Nobel Committee, recognizing her singular achievements following Pierre's death, awarded Marie Curie her second Nobel Prize. This time, it was the Nobel Prize in Chemistry, awarded in recognition of her services to the advancement of chemistry by the discovery of the elements radium and polonium, by the isolation of radium and the study of the nature and compounds of this remarkable element. This second Nobel Prize made Marie Curie the only person ever to win Nobel Prizes in two different scientific fields, and the only woman to win two Nobel Prizes. It was a triumph of individual genius, a powerful statement of her own undeniable scientific contribution, independent of her partnership with Pierre. Yet, this period was also marked by a vicious anti-Semitic and xenophobic campaign in the French press, particularly during the time of her second Nobel nomination. They attacked her as a foreigner, Jew, though she was Catholic, and questioned her moral character due to her involvement in a private affair with a married physicist, Paul Langevin, after Pierre's death. Despite the public vitriol and scandalous attacks, Marie stood firm. She chose to attend the Nobel ceremony in Stockholm, delivering a dignified acceptance speech that emphasized the purity of scientific endeavor. Her life had become a public spectacle of both adoration and vilification, but through it all, her focus remained steadfastly on the science. The gold medal of the second Nobel Prize was a heavy, shining symbol of her resilience, her intellectual independence, and her unwavering dedication to the pursuit of knowledge, even in the darkest valleys of personal grief and public scandal. Let the image of Marie, standing alone yet resolute in the lecture hall, or meticulously working in her lab, bring a sense of profound strength and quiet purpose to your mind. Her journey reminds us that even in the face of insurmountable loss, the human spirit, fueled by an inner fire, can continue to achieve the extraordinary. Let this inspiring endurance guide you now into a deep and truly peaceful sleep. Let your mind drift now, as we move from the hushed laboratories and grand lecture halls to a starker, more urgent landscape, the battlefields of World War I. The year is 1914, and Europe is plunged into an unprecedented, brutal conflict. Millions of young men are being sent to the front lines, suffering horrific injuries. For Marie Curie, now an established scientific legend and a double Nobel laureate, the outbreak of war did not mean a retreat into the safety of her research. Instead, it ignited a fierce, practical determination to apply her scientific knowledge directly to the humanitarian crisis unfolding around her. Her laboratory, the Radium Institute, which she had fought so hard to establish and was just beginning to flourish, suddenly seemed less important than the urgent needs of the wounded soldiers. Marie quickly understood a critical need on the battlefront: radiography. She knew that X-ray machines, which had existed since Röntgen's discovery in 1895, could dramatically improve battlefield surgery by allowing doctors to locate bullets, shrapnel, and broken bones inside soldiers' bodies. However, these machines were large, static, and located in distant hospitals, far from the front lines where they were most needed. Her vision was clear and audacious: mobile X-ray units. She imagined small, self-contained vehicles equipped with X-ray machines and dynamos, capable of driving directly to the front to provide immediate, life-saving diagnostic information. These units would become affectionately known as Petites Curies, the Little Curies. Imagine the monumental task. France was at war. Resources were scarce. But Marie, with her characteristic tenacity, was unyielding. She began by appealing to wealthy French women, urging them to donate their cars, which could then be converted into these mobile X-ray stations. She also used her own Nobel Prize money, both her physics and chemistry awards, to fund the initial purchases of equipment. This was not a theoretical exercise, it was a race against time, a direct application of her personal wealth and scientific capital to save lives. She faced immense bureaucratic resistance. Military authorities were skeptical of a woman, especially a scientist, leading such a practical, logistical effort. But Marie was relentless. She educated herself on automotive mechanics, electrical systems, and human anatomy. She learned to drive, often under perilous wartime conditions, to personally oversee the deployment of these units. Her eldest daughter, Irene, then a brilliant but shy 17-year-old, quickly joined her mother's mission. Marie personally trained Irene in the principles of X-rays and basic anatomy. Together, mother and daughter became a formidable, self-sufficient team, driving one of the first little Curies directly to the battlefields. Picture them now, Marie, in her simple, practical uniform, driving a heavy vehicle through war-torn landscapes, muddy roads, bombed-out villages, under the constant threat of enemy fire. Irene, by her side, equally calm and determined. They were often working in incredibly primitive conditions, sometimes in tents or makeshift shelters, with no proper facilities, facing grim scenes of human suffering. Marie also established 200 fixed X-ray posts across French hospitals and personally trained over 150 women to operate these machines. She understood that technology was useless without skilled human operators. These women, many of whom were volunteers, learned quickly under Marie's direct and demanding tutelage, providing vital diagnostic services to thousands of wounded soldiers. The work was physically exhausting and extremely dangerous. They were constantly exposed to radiation, the long-term effects of which were still not fully understood. Marie suffered from numerous ailments during this period: fatigue, anemia, skin lesions, all likely exacerbated by her close proximity to the X-ray tubes. Yet, she never faltered. Her focus was solely on the wounded soldiers. Her determination was not just about applying science, it was about human dignity. She insisted that every soldier, regardless of rank or background, deserved the best possible medical care. The little Curies became symbols of hope, bringing the cutting edge of scientific medicine directly to those who needed it most. They located countless bullets, identified innumerable fractures, and undoubtedly saved thousands of limbs and lives by guiding surgeons with precise information. Imagine the faces of the doctors and nurses, often overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the injuries, finding a moment of clarity and relief when Marie and her team arrived. Imagine the soldiers, writhing in pain, finding comfort in the knowledge that their injuries could now be precisely diagnosed. Throughout the war, Marie also worked to secure and distribute radium for medical use. She understood that radium's radiation could be used to treat certain cancers and skin conditions. She fiercely protected the world's precious supply of radium, ensuring it was used for therapeutic purposes, even as the war raged. The war years were a period of immense personal sacrifice for Marie. Her own research, the very work that had brought her global fame, was largely put on hold. Her focus shifted from the abstract pursuit of knowledge to the immediate, tangible needs of humanity. She transformed from a solitary, theoretical scientist into a pragmatic, empathetic leader in a time of crisis. By the end of the war in 1918, Marie Curie's efforts had fundamentally changed military medicine. The little Curies and the trained radiographers had performed over 1 million X-ray examinations. She had proven, beyond any doubt, the profound humanitarian impact of science when applied with courage and compassion. Her work during this period, though rarely recognized with the same fanfare as her Nobel Prizes, stands as one of her most inspiring contributions. It was a testament to her profound belief in the power of science to alleviate suffering, and her unwavering commitment to serving humanity. She was not only a scientific genius but also a quiet, tenacious warrior for human life. Let the image of Marie, driving her little Curie through the war-torn landscape, bringing light and healing to the injured, settle gently into your mind. Her selflessness and courage illuminate the path to deep, restorative sleep. Rest now, with the calming knowledge that even in times of great darkness, human ingenuity and compassion can create beacons of hope. As we gently approach the final chapter of Marie Curie's extraordinary life. The Great War had ended in 1918, leaving Europe scarred but slowly rebuilding. For Marie, the war had been a period of intense, self-sacrificing humanitarian effort, a testament to her profound belief in applying science for the benefit of humanity. But with the war's end, her focus gradually returned to her beloved Radium Institute, Institut du Radium, in Paris. This institute, which she had so tirelessly fought to establish, was now meant to be a leading center for research into radioactivity and its applications in medicine. Yet, despite her 2 Nobel Prizes and her wartime heroics, the institute faced a persistent challenge, a severe shortage of radium. Radium was incredibly expensive and rare, with most of the world's supply being held in the United States. Without it, her advanced research and medical applications were severely hampered. This scarcity led to one of the most remarkable chapters of her later life, her journeys to America. In 1920, an American journalist named Marie Mattingly Maloney, deeply impressed by Curie's story and her critical need for radium, launched a public fundraising campaign. Maloney captivated the American public, painting a vivid picture of this humble, dedicated scientist working in relative poverty while America held vast quantities of the very element she needed. Imagine Marie, a woman who shunned public life, now embarking on a grand, transatlantic journey to a country so different from her quiet European existence. In 1921, she made her first triumphant tour of the United States. She was greeted as a global celebrity, a scientific saint. Parades were held in her honor, and she met President Warren G. Harding at the White House. During a moving ceremony, President Harding presented her with a symbolic gram of radium, purchased with the funds raised by American women. This single gram, worth an astronomical amount at the time, was a lifeline for her institute. Imagine the quiet dignity of Marie Curie, accepting this precious gift, not for personal gain, but for the advancement of science and the alleviation of suffering. Her American tours, including a second one in 1929, became powerful platforms for advocating for science, for women in science, and for the global distribution of scientific resources. She established the Radium Institute in Warsaw, her homeland, and used some of the American funds to equip it. Throughout these later years, Marie continued her research, albeit with increasing health challenges. The very element she had discovered, the source of her fame, was also slowly taking its toll. Her hands, once so nimble and precise in the laboratory, were now scarred and disfigured by years of unshielded exposure to radiation. She suffered from chronic fatigue, anemia, and cataracts. She remained, however, undeterred, viewing her ailments as an acceptable, if tragic, occupational hazard. Her daughters, Irene and Eve, watched her with both admiration and concern. Irene, following directly in her parents' footsteps, became a brilliant physicist and chemist herself, working closely with her mother. Eve, though not a scientist, would later become her mother's biographer, preserving her incredible story for future generations. Marie Curie also became a powerful symbol and advocate for international scientific cooperation. She attended numerous scientific conferences, tirelessly promoting the free exchange of scientific knowledge and advocating for the establishment of international standards for radiation measurement. She understood that science transcended national borders and political disputes. Her legacy extended far beyond her scientific discoveries. She proved, against immense societal prejudice, that a woman could achieve the absolute pinnacle of scientific and academic excellence. She broke barriers not with fiery rhetoric, but with relentless work, undeniable intellect, and unwavering integrity. She opened doors for countless women who followed her into the traditionally male-dominated fields of science. As the years passed, Marie's health continued to decline. The radiation she had been exposed to for decades had caused severe and irreversible damage to her bone marrow. Her body, which had endured so much physical labor and intellectual strain, was finally succumbing to the invisible enemy. On July 4, 1934, at the age of 66, Marie Curie passed away in a sanatorium in France. Her death was officially attributed to aplastic anemia, a condition caused by prolonged exposure to high-energy radiation. She literally gave her life for science, paying the ultimate price for her groundbreaking discoveries. Her papers, even decades after her death, remained so radioactive that they had to be stored in lead-lined boxes. Her funeral was simple and private, in keeping with her modest nature. She was buried alongside Pierre in the cemetery at Sceaux, their eternal partnership beautifully reunited. Years later, in 1995, their remains were transferred to the Pantheon in Paris, the mausoleum for France's most revered citizens. Marie Curie became the first woman to be interred there on her own merit, a final, powerful acknowledgement of her enduring place in history. Marie Curie's life was a radiant beacon of genius, courage, and selfless dedication. She uncovered the secrets of radioactivity, forever altering our understanding of matter and energy. She paved the way for nuclear physics, modern medicine, and countless applications of radioactive materials. But more than that, she exemplified the purest spirit of scientific inquiry, a relentless pursuit of truth, regardless of personal cost. Her legacy continues to glow, not with the ethereal blue-green light of radium in a dark lab, but with the enduring radiance of a life lived for discovery and humanity. May her story inspire you now, filling your mind with peace and profound admiration, guiding you into the deepest, most tranquil sleep.